And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Pinstripe Prospects Podcast. We're on episode number 11 of season number 2. We're happy that you're with us here tonight or whenever you're listening to us on the podcast. We hope you're staying safe. We hope you're staying inside during this pandemic. You're following the CDC rules, and we're getting closer. But sadly, still so much sad news out there in the world. We have more sad news to talk about this week. Of course, we're going to get into the loss of Hank Steinbrenner, talk about the impact he had on the Yankees, kind of getting a little bit, because we have a lot of good Hank Steinbrenner moments to dive into. We're going to get into the Pinstripe Madness Championship. The Prospect Madness Championship is set. We'll give you the matchup and some great storylines down the stretch. We had overtime in one of the matchups. We're going to get into that. We'll preview the championship. We're also going to do an idea that James had last week, James O'Connell, who you'll hear in a moment. He brought up a thing of doing random Yankees, just naming random Yankees from the last 10, 15, 20 years. Guys would be like, oh yeah, they were Yankees. We're going to get into that. Talk about the Grapefruit League, Cactus League proposal that Bob Nightingale pointed out. Let's give the Yankees the division now. And we'll talk about some of the other news in sports. I know Anthony Fauci, the big lead guy on the White House task force, talking about how you can get sports up with no fans. So I think that's still pretty interesting. And, of course, we're recording on Jackie Robinson Day, so we're going to do a little bit of that as well. Remind you can follow us on Twitter at Pinstripe Pros, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Give a rating. We prefer 5 stars, but we want to hear from you. What segments you want to hear, what guests you want to hear. What do you want us to talk about? Feel free to send us there. Send on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe there. You can email me, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. Happy to take your suggestions. So I'm pleased to be joined once again this week by my co-host, James O'Connell. James, how you doing this week?
Still quarantined, man. Everyone's still quarantined. Not much going on. Golf courses in New York got shut down last week. Tough blow. It was the only thing really left for me to do. So kind of bored. Just bunch of schoolwork. Bunch of nothing. Bunch of PS4.
Did you watch Tiger rerun Masters last week or no?
Oh, come on, of course. I watch it on Sunday as if it was the first time I watched it.
Yeah, that was cool watching Nance talk to Tiger on Sunday and talking to Phil too Saturday. So that gave you a different look. I was shocked they did that, but I was happy they did that at the same time.
Yeah, I loved how Tiger was getting completely choked up too. And he was getting emotional talking about it. So just how much it meant to him. I love the game of golf. It's phenomenal, and it's there's nothing better than when Tiger Woods is gone.
I caught a good baseball game, a couple good baseball games this week. There was it was Greg Maddox Day on Tuesday. So they had a game 1 of the 95 World Series with the Indians. So that was a pretty good game. And I caught the 50th anniversary of Jackie Robinson Day, which was an ESPN game. Dodgers Mets at Shea. And I think Chris Berman was interviewing Bill Clinton during the game. So it was there was a game going on, but it was a lot of other things involved too. They had an interview with Rachel Robinson in the 7th inning or later innings, I believe, too. So that was a cool historic kind of ball game. You forget about, there was a Dodger Met game that, some of the players from 97. Dodgers had a sneakily good team. They had Todd Zeile. They had Todd Hollinsworth, Eric Karros, Mike Piazza. They had a good team in 97.
Oh, yeah. It's also it's cool kind of these old games kind of being on. It's kind of cool, but then at the same time it kind of brings you back to the depressing stage of actual real-time baseball should be on right now.
Oh, you'll feel that you'll feel that on Thursday because you got, I think LV Network's doing recent debuts. So I think it's DeGrom's debut, Judge's debut, Harper's debut, Strasburg's debut. I think those are only 4. I didn't see Trout's debut anywhere. So I'm kind of shocked. If you're going to have debuts, why don't we have Mike Trout's debut? But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Of course, some sad news we have to get into in the Yankee universe this week. Co-chairperson Hank Steinbrenner passed away at the age of 63, not due to coronavirus, but he had health-related issues. And James, I know we kind of think of Hank Steinbrenner. Of course, he wasn't in the spotlight as much in recent years because Hal took over the bulk of the baseball operations. But back in 2008, 2007, around those years, Hank Steinbrenner was the voice of the Yankees, and he gave you quotes that reminded you of his dad.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what everyone really remembers him for. At least that's what I remember him for. Is that everyone kind of had him as the air George Steinbrenner there. He was kind of the next George. He always made George like comments and stuff like that. So it's a sad day to get that update. Yeah, but he'll always be remembered as a crucial part of the Yankees family. That's just how it is if you're a Steinbrenner, especially the son of George.
It was a great tweet by Tyler Hafner. Tweeted on Tuesday, "We'll never forget walking to Red Sox clubhouse in Denver after they won the '07 World Series. Cell phone rings. It's Hank Steinbrenner. A-Rod just opted out. Does he want to go in the Hall of Fame as a Yankee or a Toledo mud hen?" That was fun, Hank Steinbrenner, because remember also there was the big debate around that time whether Jabba Chamberlain would be a starter. There was a great piece I found from like the Seattle Times where Hank is talking about, well, you got 100 mile an hour, I'll paraphrase, you got 100 mile an hour pitcher, why not make him a starter? And like, you want to go back and like, now we think, 100 mile an hour guy, let's just stick him, make him our super reliever in the bullpen. Like, I kind of remember the whole Jabba Josh Beckett comparison too. It was kind of like an interesting flashback to like 10 years ago.
Yeah. The old stories, kind of like whenever something like the tragedy like this happens, they're always the best. You kind of go back and read. It's like going down time capsule, you know. So again, always remember Hank Steinbrenner as the supposed next George. You know, that everyone, like you said, everyone was kind of screaming for him to be the owner of the Yankees as opposed to Hal, because they thought maybe Hal was a little softer, a little not as invested in baseball as George, and people saw Hank as very similar to George, and that's what they wanted out of him. So rest in peace, Hank Steinbrenner, man.
And he reminded us of you look at the old school Yankee fan. A lot of people like related more to Hank at the time because right now you look at Hal and the Yankees were being fiscally responsible and things like that, especially in the years they weren't making the playoffs, where the fan base you felt related more to Hank than they do now to Hal, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes you latch on to one person more than another. And the Yankee fan, I felt at that time felt more attached to Hank than they do Hal right now.
Absolutely. Hal Steinbrenner kind of, before the whole Garrett Cole signing, kind of was in a tough spot with Yankee fans just because it seemed like he was reluctant to dig into those pockets. And I think people kind of feel that, number one, George certainly wasn't shy to go into his pockets, and Hank wouldn't have been either. I think that's just the general perception here. But yeah, I really don't know how to approach it. How else to approach this? There's right now Hal Steinbrenner is the owner of the Yankees, and I guess that's it.
So again, our thoughts and prayers out to the Steinbrenner family during this difficult time. Just more sad news in the world with all the other sad news going around this week. Let's get into the Pinstripe Prospect Madness Championship. You've all voted on Pinstripe Prospects on our Twitter page. We reached our semifinals. We had Gleyber Torres against Aaron Judge, and we had Gary Sanchez against Dellin Betances. The winners will meet up in the Prospect Madness Championship, which the voting will start Thursday at noon, and will go for 3 days. So it's the super round where get your votes in. Every vote counts, and we'll tell you why every vote counts. The first semifinal between Aaron Judge and Gleyber Torres, well, we had to go to overtime because after 70-plus votes, they were tied. So what we did, because we didn't really have a tiebreaker rule, but since I'm the Pinstripe Prospect Selection Committee, I make the rules, we had a 4-hour tiebreaker on Sunday to determine who'd win. And we almost had another tiebreaker after almost 140 votes. Judge won 52-48. So Aaron Judge makes the final. And I won't say an upset, but I kind of was making the case for Judge on the show last week, James. I think a lot of people listening would be surprised that Gleyber Torres is out.
Yeah, I said I could have made a case for both guys, but I personally voted for Gleyber. I just, again, the prospect status and just being able to stay on the field the last 2 years and kind of the production, I would have voted for Gleyber, me personally. But I'm not in the slightest surprised that Aaron Judge is moving on, just because, again, this is the supposed and expected next captain of the New York Yankees. So he's the face of the Yankees. Argue he's the face of baseball, because it's certainly not Mike Trout. He's not the face of baseball. If Mike Trout walked into Roosevelt Field Mall, half of Roosevelt Field Mall would not notice that is indeed the best player in baseball. For those of you who don't know, Roosevelt Field Mall is it's in Garden City, on New York, Long Island. So yeah, you could argue Aaron Judge is probably the face of baseball. You saw him on FaceTime with Damian Lillard the other day on Instagram Live, and Damian Lillard was calling him the next Derek Jeter. And I honestly think that's how most Yankee fans feel. Not the irrational, negative, the Yankees stink, everything the Yankees do is wrong, those type of fans. But the rational fans kind of feel like this is kind of this generation's Derek Jeter. And I would have voted for Glaber because I haven't necessarily seen that on the field just yet. Well, check that. When he's on the field, I have seen it in the production. I just haven't seen him on the field consistently enough to kind of throw him that title just yet. But, yeah, not surprised at all to see Judge win, but I personally went with Glaber.
The other matchup, Gary Sanchez rolled very comfortably over Dylan Betances. We did not need overtime. It was 81-19. Gary Sanchez actually received over 80% of the vote in each vote. Now, this is going to be his toughest battle going into the championship with Aaron Judge, but so far, James, it's been pretty much easy cruising for Sanchez. Maybe it's been based on the matchups, but he hasn't really had to sweat to get to this point.
He's had a very kind of easy path here. Like Glaber Torres and Aaron Judge ran, they both kind of ran into a monster there. That would have been the finals if you swap Glaber and Betances and Glaber or Sanchez and I guess Sanchez, whoever. You would have a Judge Torres final. I think we said that last week that Torres Judge would, like, whoever won that kind of win. So Gary's kind of had an easy path. Not a Gary hater, but I'm not the biggest Gary believer, so I really don't expect the finals to be all that close.
So let's preview a little bit of the championship here, and I have a couple of stats, and you'll find a little bit of this as well in the post that I put up regarding to the recap of the matchups. We only have 2 prospect lists over the last few years where both players were on it. Back in 2015, Judge was the top prospect in the Yankee system according to MLB Pipeline. Sanchez was 5th. But in 2014, Sanchez was 2nd behind Severino, and Judge was 5th. So both have been even. You average that out pretty much around the same spot. Judge had 57 home runs in 353 minor league games. Only hit 20 home runs once, but he did make 2 All-Star teams and hit 308 back in 2014. And for Gary Sanchez, he made a midseason All-Star team at the affiliate he played on for 5 straight years. So from 2012 to 2016, whatever league, whether it was the Florida State League, the Eastern League, the International League, chances are Gary Sanchez was on an All-Star team. And I think that's a really big accomplishment. In 650 career minor league games, he's hit 274 with 104 home runs. Sanchez never hit 20 home runs in a given season. I found that interesting with the power that he has. But he did have 85 RBIs in 2012, which is pretty high for the minor league level. I'm looking at the stats when I did, James. I think if you go off the numbers, which is, again, it's your criteria. You can vote however you want. Mm-hmm. I think Aaron Judge will win, but I think I could see this as like a 60-40, 55-45 kind of thing. Because I think Gary, while he's dominated the early matchups, has a really good resume to get to this point. I don't see this as a runaway.
I think the lowest that we'll see is a 60-40. I think that's the absolute lowest. People are not fond of Gary Sanchez. They're just not. Can you blame them? Probably not. The production has not been there. So when you really think about it, it's in terms of production, in terms of kind of stature and whatnot. Aaron Judge, I honestly disagree. I think he's going to absolutely blow away Sanchez here. Sure, he has some nice minor league stats. He has a year and a half, 2 maybe good major league seasons, all-star campaigns. But there's just a total difference in the level of player between Aaron Judge and Gary Sanchez, and just a level of kind of leadership and just all the intangibles you could ever think of. So I think Judge is going to completely blow him out of the water.
Regardless of who wins this vote, I think it's very indicative that these two made the final, although you could make the case if Torres was in the final too, because these two are kind of the new members of that core. We haven't put a number on it yet because you don't know how many players actually last out of this core. But the new core that kind of turned everything around for the Yankees, which will lead us into our segment after the out in a little bit where we do a little random Yankees. So kind of look back a little bit. But
so excited.
That these two were kind of the main pillars on how the Yankees got back to being in postseason contention and being in the playoffs every single year.
No doubt. Gary Sanchez, if the Yankees do eventually, and I do expect this core group to win at least one championship. If they do pull it off, Gary Sanchez is going to be a central part of it. There's no doubt. And he was a central part of kind of the rebuilding and like the retooling. It wasn't even the rebuild; it was the retooling of this Yankees franchise. Because you remember they were selling off pieces in 2016, and all of a sudden Gary Sanchez came up to his best Babe Ruth impression and hit like 700 home runs in like 2 days. So it kind of made the future look a little bit bright. And so I guess I could see where someone would vote for someone like Gary Sanchez, but when you, in the grand scheme of things, these are two guys that help jumpstart the next, hopefully, great Yankee run, the next great Yankee dynasty that we're all waiting to see. And I think we all kind of believe we're going to see sometime soon.
So we want to remind you, our Pinstripe Prospects, we provide exclusive minor league content to paid subscribers with our new Dugout membership program. You get scouting reports, player interviews, features, and much more in addition to the free Major League coverage we provide. We'll give out some of those articles and a little bit of what's out on the site this week toward the end of the show. You can sign up for our Dugout membership program. It's either $7 a month or $63 a year. And you could also get the first 30 days free if you do the promo code IMissBaseball. Again, the promo code is IMissBaseball, and don't we all? But you get your first 30 days free. So you buy it, try it out, see if you like it. I think you will. But I definitely think you should check that out, especially with that great deal. And we do some great things on our Twitter account throughout the year if you're a part of a Dugout membership program. So make sure to check that out and get your membership today. So let's go back to last week. We don't have the flashback to last week music, but that'd be pretty cool if we did. But we kind of, the last couple weeks have been just throwing out ideas throughout the show, and then we go, oh, next week, let's talk about it. So last week, James had the great idea of just thinking about random Yankees, guys that were like, oh, yeah, they were New York Yankees. Oh, yeah, they played in the Bronx once in a blue moon over the last, I don't know, decade or so. We kind of didn't really put a fine number on it. So James and I both did a little bit of homework, and we kind of did our own kind of starting lineup of random Yankees. We're going to put a lineup out there. Now, we're not going to put this in MLB The Show and see who wins, because if you look at some of these names, it would be a real ugly game to watch, let's be honest. But we had some fun with it, and we'll kind of talk about a little bit of our selections. So, James, do we want to go position by position, or we just want to unveil teams and then talk about it here?
We can go, I guess, we can go position by position. Let's start with starting pitcher, relief pitcher, and we'll go through the lineups and stuff.
All right, so I know we talked a little bit before the show. You had a great name for starting pitcher, so I'll let you go first.
I starting pitcher is the one I was lost on, but I found
you came up with one.
Yeah, I came up with one. I definitely came up with one. All right, so I'll go ahead and say my starting pitcher is Kevin Brown. So Kevin Brown, for those of you that don't know, was a star pitcher for most of his career. He comes over to the Yankees in 2004, 2005. Absolutely. This guy was just brutal. So that kind of fits into the roles of like, this dude was a Yankee. We're talking about a 5-time All-Star. Let's see. We're talking about a 6-time All-Star here, having ERAs under 2. In 1996, he had a 1.89 ERA. In 2000, he had a 2.58 ERA. This guy was an absolute stud. He was in Cy Young mixes, getting MVP votes. Comes over to the Yankees, and here you have it: 10-6, 4.10 ERA, 4.7, 6.50 ERA. So, Kevin Brown. I know people kind of do remember him as a Yankee, but that's my random starting pitcher.
Definitely a good name. You don't want him on the mound in a big game, especially Game 7, 2004. Definitely one I would not. You would not think, oh yeah, Yankee. I always still think Kevin Brown more Dodger, but definitely I like that one. I went with a guy that had a memorable career with the Yankees, albeit a short cup of coffee with them, but he had a good moment. I went Aaron Small. Aaron Small, of course, was a right-hander journeyman guy. Made his major league debut in 1994. Was signed by the Yankees before the 2005 season. came up in 05, went 10-0 with a 3.20 ERA in 15 games, made 9 starts. I think he had one of those games in Boston where he gave up back-to-back home runs. That was not a very good moment, so take that out of your mind. He did pitch in 2006 for a little bit, had a bad year in 06, pitched in the playoffs in 05, didn't do well there either. But still, he was one of those guys that you always look for that one year, that pitcher who makes a big surprise and comes out of nowhere and helps the team reach their goal. I feel like Aaron Small did that a little bit, so I give him some nod here, although he only had 37 strikeouts in 15 games. Not a very good strikeout guy.
All right, so I'm going to head into my relief pitcher. I have a couple recent guys in here, guys that were on the team pretty recently, even as close as last year. But at relief, probably the last guy I want to see on the mound at this given time, former top prospect of the Washington Nationals, supposedly one of the next great things of the Washington Nationals, AJ Cole, the relief pitcher AJ Cole, as my random New York Yankee, and that's just because of his prospect stature with the Nationals, and kind of when he's a complete tall tree, like he just looks like a dominant pitcher. He gets on the mound, he has some weird motion. He lasted He was on the Yankees one season. So that's my random relief pitcher, AJ Cole. And I promise you, I have better position players.
You know, I wrote about AJ Cole while I was at District on Deck, the Nationals fan-sided site. And I remember kind of like the hype around AJ Cole. Not quite the hype that was Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez.
Right.
But there was hype around him, and he never really quite lived up to everything. He had some decent moments, but nothing that'll stand out as like that wow factor that people thought he would be. But I like that name. Definitely a very random Yankee. I went a Yankee that had a couple good years as my relief pitcher. I went Brian Bruney here. Brian Bruney, of course, got traded to the Yankees in 2000. Oh, no, he signed with the Yankees, in 2006. Was traded away in 2009 to the Nationals after that World Series year. Bruney had a couple of nice seasons with the Yankees. You go back to 2009 during that World Series year, went 5-0 out of the bullpen, 3.92 ERA. He had a 1.83 ERA in 2008 in 32 games, so pretty good numbers there. So if you go off his Yankee career, he went 12-3, 3.25, had 133 strikeouts, 144 innings. Did finish 29 games as well. When you think back to that 2009 bullpen, you think Rivera, you think Hughes, you think Robertson, you think Java, you think Damaso Marte, and kind of that last good reliever, you think Phil Koch too. You probably have to go 6-7 names deep before you go Brian Bruney. So I would like to have him as my relief pitcher that I can use practically any inning I want.
Like it. I like it. And I like my position players even more than I did in my starting pitchers. I thought my pitchers they were kind of weak. But I'm going to start with catcher. As my catcher, former MVP, one of the greatest catchers of all time, played, let me stat check here. He played 33 games with the Yankees in 2008. Ivan Pudge Rodriguez. Talk about random Yankees. One of the greatest catchers of all time. We played for Texas and Florida and Detroit and whatnot. He played Texas most of his career. It's where he's known for. Won an MVP in 99. And kind of at the end of his career, here you go. You have Ivan Rodriguez on the New York Yankees. So I thought that was kind of a very random Yankee. Like you kind of look back like, oh, really? He was on the Yankees? Kind of one of those deals.
I remember being so excited when they traded for Pudge.
Absolutely. So do I.
I'll go the catcher I went here as my guy at the backstop. I went Chris Stewart, who had 2 different stints with the Yankees. He actually appeared in a major league game in 2008 for the Yankees and then got traded back to New York in 2012 by the Giants in the George Contos trade. Then the Yankees shipped him off the next year to the Pirates. So Chris Stewart's a guy that when you talk about catchers, you think Posada, you think Russell Martin, you think Francisco Cervelli. You don't think Chris Stewart, and there's a reason you don't. He hit 211 in 109 games in 2013, 241 in 55 games in 2012. He, from what I can tell here, and I'd want to double check, actually did play a game in the postseason, never got an at-bat in 2012. So I will go Chris Stewart as that guy that just always seemed to be on the Yankees at some point.
Yeah, I remember Chris Stewart as he was kind of one of those random guys. Like he perfectly fits this description, this this segment here. I'm going to head into first base, and at first base, I have former Cleveland Indian who had a phenomenal 3-year stretch from 2004 to 2006, having 28, 33, 42 homers in those 3 years. Almost having 3 consecutive years over 1,000 OPS, got some MVP votes in all 3 years. Travis Hafner played one season at the end of the last season of his career, actually, with the Yankees in 2013. Batted .202 with a 679 OPS and 12 homers. So I think I kind of remember Travis Hafner in those kind of earlier video games like MVP Baseball, and I remember the guy was an absolute freak. Like he was just one of those dudes. You're like, man, like I wish he was on the Yankees, and like at least back then. And sure enough, he was at the end of his career. Kind of one of those randoms.
He was that guy in 2007 in that playoff series of the Indians, one of those guys you just feared facing and just always seemed to find a way to hurt you at some point.
Absolutely.
I do remember that, and that's a tough one. That was some lean years. He was mainly the DH, I think, a lot of the time, too.
Yeah.
So Hafner's a good name here. First base, I went Lyle Overbay. Signed with the Yankees right before the 2013 season. Was with the Braves and Diamondbacks in 2012. Overbay hit .240, 14 homers, 59 RBIs. But you look back at that 2013 Yankee squad, 14 homers wasn't that bad. The Yankees really didn't have a lot of guys that can hit the ball out of the ballpark in 2013. Robinson Cano led with 27. Alfonso Soriano had 17. And then you find Lyle Overbay. So he's right there. So he was arguably one of those guys that helped the Yankees somehow stay in playoff contention in 2013. So Lyle Overbay, former Blue Jay, makes the cut here at first base.
I remember Lyle Overbay just depositing balls into the right field seat, and I would walk into like 7th period lunch in like 8th or 9th grade, whatever, and be like, dude, like I swear to God, the Yankees are so good this year. Lyle Overbay cannot stop hitting home runs. They were in first place at one point that year, right? Like early on.
Yeah, I feel like they were always hovering around that playoff spot in 2013. They never were. They finished 85 and 77, as we all know. So they always seem to be right there, but we're like they're there, but they're not there.
Yeah. All right. So second base, I my random Yankee, former Seattle Mariner, kind of a promising guy who never really panned out. Showed some pop. Played in Seattle from 2011 to 2015. The Yankees traded from 2015. Dustin Ackley. Dustin Ackley played, let's see if my math's right, 41 games with the Yankees between 2015 and 2016. And I remember just thinking when they traded for him that this was kind of a guy with some lefty pop. And I don't know why I even thought that because he never hit more than 14 home runs in a season. So I always felt like he was one of those guys that people thought could be pretty good. If people thought he had some potential. He finished 6th in the Rookie of the Year vote in 2011, which is something to kind of hang your hat on a little bit. But I don't know. I always saw Dustin Ackley as a guy that potentially could have it and potentially would have been a good fit in Yankee Stadium, but he wasn't. 41 games, batted 140, or I think it was. How do I combine these two? He batted about 195 in 41 games with the Yankees. That's my rate.
That was just bad luck for the Mariners that year. When you think about it, they had the number 2 pick in 2009, took Dustin Ackley. Of course, the number 1 pick that year, Steven Strasburg. So that's one of those years you just kind of get unlucky. Ackley did have a 7 WAR in his career, which wasn't bad on the 2009 first-round list. Of course, though, when you look back at that first round, I'll throw a couple names out there that they could have had: Mike Trout, A.J. Pollock, Mike Minor, James Paxton, Zach Wheeler, I think went 6th. So it's just one of those things you look at the MLB draft, which we'll dive into in a couple months, regardless of how many rounds it is. I mean, that's one. I remember Ackley kind of like being that guy. I think it was like a trade deadline move, right? Where like the Yankees took a flyer on him and tried to see if it stuck. And I remember thinking, okay, it's a low risk, high reward thing. So Ackley at least stands out to me there. Second base, I went with a journeyman veteran that helped the team win a championship. I went Jerry Hairston Jr. He only played 45 games in 2009, was traded from the Yankees to the Cincinnati from the Reds to the Yankees for Chase Weems. Interesting name. Hairston, 45 games in the 2009 season for the Yankees at .237, 2 home runs, 12 RBIs, was the winning run in Game 2 of the ALCS against the Angels, that game that went extra innings. He actually got a start, I believe, in that World Series against the Phillies. Went 1 for 6 in that series, but he did get a start. He did end up playing with the Padres, the Nationals, Brewers, and then the Dodgers for the final 4 years of his career. Did make the playoffs with the Brewers in 2011. So one of those guys who also I think is with the Dodgers TV booth now, but he was just one of those reliable veterans you wanted to have on your team to make those small plays. So I'll give some love here to Jerry Hairston Jr., part of the great baseball Hairston family.
He was on my list originally until I saw Dustin Ackley. And so I like the Harrison Jr. pick here. Going into shortstop, 2019
This one's
Yankees.
tough.
Yeah, I don't want to say cheated, but like I mean, in 5 years you'd be like, holy, whatever. This guy was on the Yankees. 2019. I think it was no secret. Remember, Didi Gregorius was out with Tommy John. Obviously, it was no secret. I don't know why I even said that. So the Yankees need to find a shortstop. And everyone's clamoring for Manny Machado. Let's get this dude on the Yankees. And we end up with Troy Tulowitzki, former superstar with the Colorado Rockies. Just kind of had those injuries, man. In one injury after the other. And really could never figure it out. He went from Colorado to Toronto in 2015. Played in Toronto to 2017. Didn't play at all in 2018. And then they released him. The Yankees took a flyer on him, picked him up. And he had a pretty good spring training last year, if I remember correctly. He hit that first home run against the Blue Jays in spring training, his first at bat, and you would have thought he had a home run to win the World Series. He's fist pumping, talking trash to his former player. It was like the most obscene thing I've ever seen. But in 2019, Tulowitzki lasted 5 games with the Yankees, kind of fitting the theme of that team. 5 games, batted 182, hit 1 home run, was a solo homer. Had an 853 OPS though in those 5 games, so not something to. And you know what he did? He was shown to play a pretty good shortstop defensively. I remember I was pretty excited about Tulowitzki, thinking that this could be a rejuvenation tour here, and he lasted 5 games. So that's my random shortstop for the Yankees.
A lot of names you can go here. Of course, when Derek Jeter wasn't playing, you had Jason Nix, Reed Brignac. Eduardo Nunez comes to mind. I went Ramiro Pena. Ramiro Pena signed with the Yankees in 2005, made his debut in that 2009 season where he played 69 games. He played 85 games in 2010. In 4 years with the Yankees, he had 233, 2 homers, 32 RBIs. Did steal 11 bases, so he had some speed. Defensively, made 27 errors in 7 games. But I think you look at the Yankees, Ramiro Pena is that guy who can play all on the infield. And I think you look around at the Yankees, Pena to me doesn't scream instant Yankee, but he was a part of that 2009 World Series team too, so I put him in here.
Definitely remember Ramiro Pena. I don't remember being all that excited about him, but I remember Ramiro Pena now that you're bringing him up. Played from 2009. He was on the Yankees from 2009 to 2012. So how about that, Ramiro Pena? Definitely a random New York Yankee. Did not play a lot with them. Heading over to third base. I feel like this is one that people kind of do talk about, kind of like as like can you believe this dude was on the Yankees? Former Boston Red Sox lifer, Kevin Youkilis, the Greek god of walks, as said in Moneyball. Youkilis had a really random stint with the Yankees. Let me pull up the stats here. Lifetime Boston Red Sox. Always had that weird batting stance with like when he was like I don't know what he was doing with his bat, but he got to the Yankees in 2013. He was an all-star in Boston, 2008, 2009, 2011. Always got on base, except when he was on the Yankees. But for the most part, he got on base. Spent the last year. He actually spent the last year of his career with the Yankees. Played 28 games. Also had a short stint with the White Sox. So Kevin Youkilis was a New York Yankee. He is my random third baseman. I think he fits that description quite well.
Youkilis definitely was a name I instantly forgot about, so that's a good idea. You never remember, oh yeah, that guy was with the Yankees. I guess because he had to shave off all the facial hair, so it was tough to remember him too. I went a guy that was a non-roster invitee in 2013 or 2014. Made his major league debut with the Yankees. I'm talking about Yangervis Solarte. One of those guys I wrote about Yanks Yard. I'm like, I like this guy. He's got a cool name. And it somewhat paid off. 254 hitter that year in 75 games, 6 homers, 31 RBIs, walked as much as he struck out. Made a decent career so far out of it. I mean, 6 years, he's hit 75 homers. He's had 5 double-digit homer seasons. Played with the Giants last year for a little bit. So you think the Yankees started up Yangervis Solarte's career. So I'll give him the nod here at third.
I remember he went on an absolute tear when he first came up, right? In that year with the Yankees, he went on a tear. He was depositing balls into the right field seats like it was nothing. And Yangervis Solarte is one of those guys when he was on the Blue Jays, I think, that I just didn't want to see up for some reason. I don't know why. I wanted no part of Yangervis Solarte.
And it helped him get Chase Headley, too. Remember, he was traded in the Headley deal to San Diego.
Don't get me started on Chase Headley. That's probably my least favorite player of all time. Chase Headley's my least favorite Yankee of all time. That's not even – there's no exaggeration there. There was one player on the Yankees that I absolutely rooted against and despised. It was Chase Headley, just because how bad at baseball he was. And that contract they gave him, I don't want to get going on it, but you got me going on it. I hate Chase Headley. So I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna move on to outfield. Let's see, where am I? So I just picked 3 outfielders. I didn't go for left field. Okay, so I'm gonna start. I kind of went with holy hell, this guy was a Yankee kind of thing. I'm sure people easily remember him, but lifetime Seattle Mariner, one of the greatest hitters of all time, Ichiro Suzuki. Ichiro was a Yankee. I mean, he was also a Marlin at one point, but he had that kind of 3-year stint with the Yankees. I'll never forget that trade when the Yankees were playing the Mariners that night, and the Yankees just traded for Ichiro in Seattle. And his first at bat, he ripped the base hit to right field. So he played 67 games in 2012 with the Yankees. At 322, he actually was very productive, Ichiro, with an astounding 5 home runs. So he had 794 OPS in 2012. Then 2013, 2014, not so great. But one of my random outfielders is Ichiro Suzuki.
Okay, so we're just going to go, I guess, one outfielder at a time. So that's fine. I'm going to go here with one of my outfielders. I mentioned him last week on the show as a guy who had a cup of coffee with the Yankees, but you might remember him from the 2009 World Series with the Phillies. I'm talking about Ben Francisco, who played with the Yankees in 2013, only 21 games, and he was terrible. Hit 114 with a solo homer, but he was in the starting lineup in that 2009 World Series with the Phillies, and he wasn't good there either. He went 0 for 8. In fact, in 3 years that he played in the playoffs, he went 2 for 19. So not exactly great, but Ben Francisco, you make the list.
Yeah, I have a former Philly here too, but I'm going to save him. Actually, no, I'm going to bring him out now. Former Philly had a pretty good stint with the Yankees. I'm talking about former outfielder Bobby Abreu. If I remember correctly, he actually had a pretty good stint with the Yankees. Yeah, he did. An 814 OPS in 27. The Yankees traded for him in 2006. He had a 926 OPS in the second half of 2006. 2007, 814 OPS. 2008, 843 OPS. And then he went to the Angels in 2009. But Bobby Abreu was a Yankee at one point. He was pretty damn good. I feel like people kind of forget just how productive he was, because I guess everyone tries to forget those middle years, kind of in between from 2004 to 2008-ish. Kind of try to forget those years as if they didn't really happen. So yeah, Bobby Abreu, one of my random outfielders.
My second random outfielder, I went Chris Young, who actually came over to the Yankees in August of 2014 after being cut by the Mets. And he was a big part in that near playoff push in 2014. He hit 282, 3 homers, 10 RBIs with the final 23 games of that season. Then got a full season in 2015, got 140 games, 14 homers, 42 RBI, hit 252. He ended up then finishing his career with the Red Sox in 16 and 17, the Angels in 18. But Chris Young was always that guy down the stretch that year in 2014, and he actually got the start in the wild card game in 2015. So Chris Young, very quietly, was that sneaky good player those 2 years with the Yankees.
I remember he kind of went on that tear in Houston. I forget what year it was, but he had this whole homecoming to Houston, and Ryan Ruocco was on the call. I think it was one of his first series calling for the Yankees, and he was just putting balls off the train tracks. I don't know why. I guess because that was his homecoming, but that's kind of what I remember about Chris Young, and that he almost, told Peter Gams of the Yankees were stealing signs too with Apple Watches and stuff. I don't want to get into it, but anyway. Last outfielder, 2019, kind of right now it's not going to hit you that he was kind of random because it's very recent. But in 5-10 years, you're going to be like, oh my God, this dude, what? How is he on the Yankees? He played 25 games, 2018. Was a part of that team, a crucial part of that team that lost to the Red Sox in the first round in their quest for a World Series. He was pimping walks. He was walking every single at bat. Something I've never seen. Recovering off a torn ACL. Currently, former MVP, Pittsburgh Pirate, Andrew McCutchen. I remember he was pretty good in 2018. Those 25 games he played. I can't believe it was only 25 games, honestly. I thought he was on the team longer. But they got him on the non-waiver deadline, correct? Or no, they got him on the waiver deadline in August or July, wherever. End of August, I forget. Yeah, he was pretty good with the Yankees, an 892 OPS. He was that leadoff hitter that they kind of were looking for, someone to get on base. That whole 2018 team, for some reason, gave me bad vibes. I don't know what it was. I always try to kind of tell myself that this could be a World Series team, Look who's on it, Stanton, Mccutchen, this one, that one. But I don't know. Something about that 2018 team really makes me want to forget about them. And I eventually am certainly going to forget that McCutchen was a Yankee.
Last outfielder for me that wraps up this list, I'm going to go with one of the coolest names in the Yankees minor league system. I used to go to Staten Island Yankee games and love when they used to say this guy's name on the public address announcing. Zoilo Almonte makes the list here. Made his major league debut June 19th, 2013 with the Yankees. His only 2 major league years are with the Yankees. In 47 games, he had 211, 2 homers, 12 RBI. But again, he had a cool name, so I had to put him here. He finished his career with the Atlanta Braves before, I think it was 1 minor league year with the Braves. So just on name alone, I got to put Zoilo in here.
Yeah, I remember Zoilo. I remember, is it Zoilo or Zoilo?
Zoilo.
Zoilo, okay. I remember him. I remember him as a prospect. I remember him his brief stint in the majors. He at one point looked pretty promising. I always get him mixed up with Mason Williams because they were, relatively the same timetable, correct?
Pretty much, yes. I would say the 2013, 2014, you had your Mason Williams, a bunch of those names thrown in. Slade Heathcott's a couple of years after that.
Jeez, what a couple of years that was. But, yeah. Good segment, man. I liked it. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Definitely had a lot of fun doing that segment. Credit to you for that idea. That was a lot of fun. Who knows? We might say something over the latter stage of the show where we might have a segment idea next week come out of thin air. I mean, that's the fun part the last couple weeks. Some quick things before we wrap up the show this week. We've had some more proposals to how the season's going to start, if and when it's going to start. Bob Nightingale from the USA Today had on Friday that the MLB was talking about having games in Florida and Arizona. Of course, now sports are essential in Florida. Different argument, different day, but nevertheless, they are essential in Florida. They're talking about having regular season games in those 2 states, no fans. The winner of the Grapefruit League will play the winner of the Cactus League in a neutral site in November in the World Series. The Yankees would be in the North Division in the Grapefruit League. They would play the Phillies, the Blue Jays, the Tigers, and the Pirates, to which I say, James, give the Yankees day at least now, and let's just get ready for October if that ended up happening to be the division.
I saw the proposal. I'm not all that thrilled about it. Because to me, this is the Yankees' year. No matter how you play it, this is the Yankees' year, and I want them to do it the right way. I want them to win the American League East. I want them to. I don't want any of this kind of nonsense. And I know I'm asking for a lot given the times, but I'm not a fan of this proposal. Sure, people say just give me baseball back, but I don't want an illegitimate World Series. I really don't. I want one the right way, because by the looks of it, the PGA Tour. Not to go back to golf here, but they're looking at a early June timetable, and if baseball could get back by early June, I'm sorry, if golf could get back by early June, then baseball could certainly get back by early June at this point. Just play with no fans in your actual stadiums. I think that's kind of. I would much rather that than this whole kind of fake league that they're proposing. They talk about an asterisk next to a World Series. If the Yankees won this World Series, it would be one of the bigger asterisks next to it. I don't know if you agree.
I mean, that to be honest, is going to be tough to avoid with any proposal. And now I think it just becomes to the point where, listen, do you want to have baseball this year in these sports? Do you want to have basketball? Do you want to have hockey? You're probably going to have to do it in conditions you're not used to, in styles you're not used to, in formats you're not used to, just to get it back. Because you're not sounds like from the governor of California, you're not getting events in California anytime soon. So you got to cross that off the list. To me, it's more now just trying to get a season in place, and then we worry about asterisks and things like that when it comes to it. I mean, there's no perfect format. Rob Manfred, I know, said on Fox Business there are different proposals, but none that have actually been thrown out there as like official ideas, just guys talking about different things. This one, I'd rather, I think, out of the two, do this the whole everybody plays in Arizona thing and see how it works. I mentioned at the top of the show, Dr. Fauci said, like, you can do that, just don't have fans. It's possible during the summer, so it left some hope. I know that there's talk that golf might come back in June, so we're getting to the point where, like, sports are slowly coming back, but at this point, it's more just see if something works rather than worry about the asterisk getting given down the road, probably.
Yeah, I get it, but it just I don't know. I just won't feel right to me. I know the president is kind of meeting with. I don't know if you saw that the president's meeting with all kind of the major sports commissioners and kind of randomly like Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft for some reason. I don't know why, but they kind of he wants to get sports going, and I can't disagree with him. I think people not only need a distraction. I mean, if they're playing baseball in Japan, where kind of this thing. And like in Asia, and like where this thing was kind of started. It didn't start in Japan, but like it started closer to Japan than it did to the United States. So if they're playing baseball over there, there's got to be a way to get it over here. And if it's this proposal, I don't know. I guess I'll have to deal with it because again, it is baseball. But why not just play in your empty stadium for the first 2 months? Why do we have to do this fake league stuff? I don't like this. But if we could just do this whole, well, now to think about it, because the travel and everything, I don't know. There's a lot of obstacles to get over, but whatever. Just get it back, and I'm sure I'll eventually talk myself into it.
Yeah, these things are going to evolve by the week, so I'm sure next week we'll have another proposal that's out there. I know they did, was it robots in the stands in China or something like that?
Yeah, I'm looking at them now. They have not robots, but they have cardboard fans in there. I think Barstool Hubs over here put that out.
Interesting. That is an interesting concept I saw there. So as we wrap up the show, James, any final thoughts this week?
Again, nope. No final thoughts. No thoughts on really anything. I guess. No, I don't know. I got nothing. What do you got?
All right. I'll throw out a couple of things. One being Tommy Kahnle is in the MLB The Show League.
Oh, right. That I saw.
I was actually watching a couple of those games. They are pretty entertaining depending on which stream you watch. But at the same time, it depends on the player. Tommy Kahnle, let's be honest, I was watching games. He was not that good. I know he's a great gamer.
Yeah, I remember he was struggling. I think I'm hearing he was struggling to hit. That was the thing.
He was struggling to hit, and I think he made one fielding mistake, which I tend to make playing that game, and it led to 6 runs when he was playing Dwight Smith of the Orioles or something. He was playing Dwight Smith, Blake Snell, which you're not going to beat. Blake Snell's really good.
Is he? He's good at the show?
Blake Snell's really good at the show. I think he lost in the finals of the Players Tournament to Amir Garrett, but he is pretty good at the show. I think I heard he beat Ian Happ like 18-1. And he's like three inning games. So Blake Snell's pretty good. I don't think he used himself though. I think he used Charlie Morton in that game. Which I love when the pitchers use themselves. I think that's the cool part of this tournament. But they are 3 inning games, so if you're on Twitch, check it out. It's a lot of fun. So I think that'll be interesting to watch over the next couple of weeks. If you're looking for something, I know NBA, that horse thing didn't work out. So don't worry about that. I wouldn't watch.
That was turned off in the first 2 minutes, I mean.
The other article I read from Kevin Reichard, I'm probably getting his last name wrong, at least on a minor league note, right now it looks like there's a conference call to set up negotiations with MLB and MILB on April 22nd. Right now, MLB only wants a 120-team farm system. So we talked about this like a couple weeks ago. Like they want to get rid of most of their short season teams and things like that. They want to move like teams like St. Paul and Sugar Land, which are independent teams, to AAA levels. They want to expand to 2 teams, get 8 more farm affiliates in there. So they want major league expansion, but cutting down on minor league teams. And of course, with this pandemic, minor league teams are losing a lot of money. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. Of course, MLB agreed to pay its minor leaguers, I think, till May 31st. So that was pretty good news on that front for them. But something to keep an eye on is the future of minor league baseball still very much up in the air with the pandemic this year and then with the proposals between the two sides going on. We'll see what happens there. And finally, I want to give a little love to Jackie Robinson. Of course, this is Jackie Robinson Day as we record it. April 15th, 1947, his major league debut, which I found interesting looking at the box score that back then they were playing the Boston Braves and starting pitchers still only went 6 innings. You kind of think back at that era and you think guys went 9-10 innings. There were bullpen guys in 1947, so they kind of got the memo there. But it's just great to think back on Jackie's career and the impact he's had on baseball and the impact he's had on life in general. I mean, we don't have a lot of things today in the civil rights movement and things like that without Jackie Robinson. And it just reminds us that sports transcends everything. That's why people want sports to come back, because it'll feel like normal again, because it doesn't feel like normal. As much as this is the new normal, it still doesn't feel like it. 2 totally different things, but sports is kind of always ahead of society in a way. And Jackie Robinson was ahead of everything. Getting a chance to play, he went through a lot. If you watch the movie 42, I've read Boys of Summer. I always said if I could go back in time, I'd love to go back and watch like a Brooklyn Dodgers game or like games back then in the 40s and 50s, because you had some legendary players on a lot of these teams. I watched like a film of like Dodgers Yankees from like 1956. You think of guys like Mantle and Billy Martin and Duke Snider and like just so many great players back then.
Yeah, my grandpa tells me all the time that the stories of him going down to Ebbets Fields and watching Jackie Robinson and whichever year that was. He remembers Ebbets Field, Polo Grounds, all that stuff, and definitely be pretty cool to go see that stuff. But yeah, for sure, Jackie Robinson, no doubt, had an outstanding, tremendous impact, breaking the color barrier in baseball. It kind of, I don't know, definitely doesn't have the same exact meaning, but in 1997, Tiger Woods, I was only bringing this up because I watched the broadcast. Tiger Woods broke the color barrier at Augusta National. He's kind of being the first African American to win over there. So yeah, a lot of historic things going on around here, or not things going on. A lot of historic things to remember.
We'll be back next week. We'll, I'm sure, have some great baseball topics to talk about. We haven't come up with the random segment yet, which means we'll have a really cool random segment next week. Probably we'll have a list or something. That'll be pretty cool. But there'll always be some great topics out there throughout the week. We'll react to the latest baseball news that's going on, when the games might start up. But we'll have some fun over the next few weeks. We're going to crown our Pinstripe Prospect Madness champion. We'll dive into that. We'll have some fun. Again, follow us on Twitter at Pinstripe Pros. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Give a rating. We hope it's 5 stars. We want to get your feedback. What segments you like? What segments you want to hear? What guests you want us to talk to? Just anything you want us to talk about. Feel free to send it to us. You can also subscribe on Spotify, Stitcher Radio, wherever you get your podcast. Pinstripe Prospects is probably on there. Also, remember, sign up for that Dugout membership program. Use the promo code IMissBaseball, and you get it free for 30 days. It's a great deal. You get to check out some of our articles. We do interviews with players. I know I'm doing an interview this week with James Nelson, who was traded from the Marlins to the Yankees this offseason. He's a high A kind of player, so I'll get his insight on being traded, kind of what he's doing now, things like that. We'll have some fun there. Matt Jarrell is a good piece on Jay Happ that's up on the website right now, A Fork in the Road for Jay Happ. I think that's an interesting column. We have an article on Giancarlo Stanton. I think trying to get who wrote that real quick so I don't get the names wrong, and it's not showing up on the page. But Matt Jarrell's doing some good stuff. Robert Coles is doing some good stuff. We have some great articles. We usually have about one a day. So chance up, you go to Pinstripe Prospects, you'll see something new every day. And you can check out our old scouting reports and things like that as well if you have the Dugout membership program. So for all of us here at Pinstripe Prospects, for our founder, Rob Pinchner, for James O'Connell, I'm Ricky Keeler saying have a great week. Stay safe, stay inside, follow the rules, and we'll see you back here next week to talk some more Yankees baseball.